Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Wild Side of STEAM, where we explore the unusual careers in science, technology, engineering, art, and math at the Smithsonian's National Zoo. My name is Shelley. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'll be your host for today. And I'm so thrilled to be joined by Mohammed, a web developer at the zoo. Hi, Mo, and welcome.
Hi, thanks, Shelley. Thank you for introducing me. Yes, my name is Mohammed, or you can just call me Mo. And I've been at the zoo for about 2 years now. And but I've been a developer for, I think, over 8 years now. It's been a long time.
Wow.
So,
So, why don't you start telling us what it is you do for the zoo?
sure. So, I'm basically a web developer. And for those who don't know, web developer is basically a programmer who basically specializes in building websites and web applications that can run inside your web browser or on the browser of your phone. Um, and while my day-to-day job doesn't involve working with animals directly, I play more of a support role in that I work directly with zoo curators and animal keepers, and even some of the communications team here at the zoo and the marketing team, all who have needs uh, on the web. So some examples include like creating a report keeping application for our animal keepers, or creating a landing page to promote our classes or our camps. So those are a few of the some of the many tasks that I do.
Very cool. So you're responsible for building the zoo's website, essentially.
Yeah, basically yes. I manage the zoo's public website and the internet as well. So we have
So
some
cool.
sites in the
So,
back.
how did you get into this career?
Oh boy. So I actually don't have, full disclosure, I don't have a computer science degree. I actually began my work as a writer for the web. So I used to work at Georgetown University a very long time ago. But I got interested in trying to understand how the sausage is made, um, so to speak. So I started taking classes online and also started reaching out to developers at meetups, and then I got another job, and I finally became a full a web developer. So, and I really love it.
That's so cool. So, what are
Yeah.
some of your favorite projects that you've gotten to work on at the zoo?
Oh, there are lots of projects. We are constantly working and churning away. Um, so one of the coolest projects I've done, and it's not necessarily a web project, was actually building an interactive display for our Asia Trail exhibit. So where we house our giant pandas and our red pandas. Let's not forget about those. And so it was really great using my skills as a web developer or the languages that I know to build something that is not traditionally web related. But another thing that I've worked on was, we recently made hundreds of images of our animals and our park available for free to use. So I was part of the team that implemented that. We call it open access. So if you go search for open access on our website, you can get uh, uh, access to our gallery and download as many images and video. I think we don't have video content yet, but the images you like. Um, and I've also worked on our bird-friendly coffee portal. So shameless plug. So we so we have we try to educate our users about the benefits of buying coffee that is harvested in in ways that are that benefits or doesn't impede on the bird migration. And so we worked on a portal to um, get users to know about our bird-friendly coffee options. So yeah, that was fun too.
That's so cool. So, you mentioned that you don't work obviously with the animals as a web developer,
Yeah.
but you're obviously still contributing to conservation through the website. Can you talk a little bit about how your job directly affects the zoo's mission of saving species?
Absolutely. So we have, millions of people visit our website every year. Um, and so it is our job to ensure that our message of conservation is prominent, and accessible to our users. So, you know, in terms and in terms of getting the word out, I think our role as the web team here is very important to helping further that mission. I'm totally humbled by the tremendous work our conservationists do, and I'm so grateful to be part of that effort. You know, even if it's like I'm at the very end of the chain, so to speak. But yeah, so that's basically my job, to ensure that the website is running so people can learn more about the conservation activities we have.
That's
So,
great. So can
yeah.
you go a little bit more into detail as how you use STEAM or science, technology, engineering, art, math in your day-to-day job?
Sure, yeah. So I am essentially a programmer. So much of my work involves writing applications in web languages. Uh, uh, there are three main ones, but we can go over that later. So that's how I basically utilize STEAM. So basic, you know, fundamentals of programming, and also I also work a lot with data and making sure that our data is accurately represented on our website as well. And I also analyze and parse data, but this is not for our folks in marketing or our communications team, so they know like what are some of the statistics we have in terms of page visitations, access to our webcams, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
Great. What are some of the challenges that you face in this career as a web developer?
Sure, there are. I mean, it's not so. First of all, you know, because it is a software development career, you know, there are lots of it can be difficult. One of the biggest challenges I have is trying to stay on top of things, or staying on the curve, so to speak. Web development is a rapidly changing space, and so as a web developer, I have to allocate or dedicate set aside some time to actually learn on the job, so I stay up to date. You know, um, another challenge, and this might be a positive or a negative depending on on who you are. You know, you are expected to be on call, so the website is always supposed to be on, and if there's downtime, then you're expected to be on call to make sure that you know, to try to get things running again. Um, and so some people don't really like that, you know. And then the last thing I would say is that it is not really a repetitive job. So if you're comfortable with a set of checklists or tasks to do from day to day, and that's what you want to do, then you know, that's fine. But as a web developer, there are no 2 days are alike. You come in and you are going to be working on building new things, or you're going to be working on remediating or fixing bugs that might have arise. Sorry. So yeah, no 2 days are alike.
Very nice. I know some people that interest them. I know when I first got into the zoo career, I was also looking for something that, you know, keeps you on your toes.
Exactly. Yeah. So definitely, for me, I think the benefits do outweigh the risks. I mean, it's a flexible career choice. It is very much in demand. You know, web developers are constantly being recruited by companies. Many people who actually start in the web development career don't even have to apply for jobs. They are just recruited or sought out by companies, which actually happened in my case with the zoo. So I was very fortunate. And also, I would say that even if you know, you're interested in application development or software development or computer science, it doesn't hurt to learn web development specifically, because the lines between web applications and native applications, or applications that run on your desktop or in the App Store, they are blurring. And actually, many of the apps you find on, you know, on your Apple or Android device, they are built using web technologies.
Well,
So
yeah, and
yeah.
especially now with people going virtual, I think it's going to be growing even more, which is a great segue into my next question. What advice do you have for folks who are possibly interested in getting into web development or coding as a career path?
Sure. So one of my big things is, if you are still in school, which I think most of you are, look into taking programming classes at your school. Even if they're not marketed specifically as web development classes, a lot of the fundamentals you learn in your coding or programming class in school will apply to web development. Secondly, also, don't be afraid to look online for resources. I mean, web applications, many of the technologies that I work with are open source, which means that they are free to use and modify. And there are massive repositories out there that you can go and check out. So it's very easy to get information if you want to learn, on your own, if you're a good self-learner. Of course, YouTube is a great resource. Everyone goes to YouTube for everything, but there are code repositories like GitHub, which there and CodePen, which have thousands upon thousands of code examples and code repositories that you can go and play around with.
And you said those are totally free that anybody can go and check out.
Yes, correct. Yes.
And you have actually made us a little play area for our viewers to go check out and play around with their own code, correct?
Yes, I have. So if you are interested in doing an after activity, a Wild Side of Steam activity, I built a very basic web page, and I'll share my screen real quick just to give you
let's take a look at what that looks like and what sort of this coding looks like for the zoo.
Yeah. All right, do you guys see my screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I use this website called Plunker, which allows me to scaffold or build very basic applications. I use this to test stuff, but this is basically a page on my favorite animal. Oops, spoiler alert. The red panda,
Oh, it looks, Mo, we actually don't see your Plunker right now.
Oh, oopsies. Give me one sec. Oh, there we go. Do you guys see it now?
Yes, there it is.
All right, fabulous. So yeah, so Plunker basically allows you to create basic, like a basic web page or a web app that you can kind of test and share with folks. And so I created one that basically creates an info page for the red panda. And as you can see, there are 3 files here. There's an HTML file, there's a CSS file for the styling, and then there's a JavaScript file, which gives us basic, JavaScript is a language that helps us create dynamic interfaces on the web. It is actually one of the biggest languages today, and I highly recommend that if you are developer that you look into, or you're interested in web development, that you explore JavaScript.
Wow.
But those are the 3, every website in the world is powered by these 3 languages: HTML, which is a markup language; CSS, which is used to style things, to give them color or or size; and then there's JavaScript, which does the dynamic stuff. So definitely gonna have this posted, I think, on our webinar page if you're interested.
Yes, so all of our viewers will be able to access our Wild Side wrap-up, where you will actually get the chance to go exactly and see what Mo was just working on, and you'll be able to plug and play different things within that code and see in real time how that changes a website. So you really get to try your hand at web development for the zoo, and you can create your own animal web page that's not red panda, whatever your favorite animal is. And so you can look for that on the webinar webpage on the zoo's website.
Yeah.
That is so cool, Mo. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
So I do have two final questions before we move on
Sure.
to the Q&A, and they are very zoo specific. So again, as we mentioned, you don't work directly with the animals, but obviously you have a big hand in conservation in general, and you work in a conservation organization. So what is your conservation passion?
Yeah, sure. So one of the biggest things that impressed me about when I first it was the projects around coral preservation, specifically coral reproduction and cryopreservation. So I think the zoo and the Conservation Biology Institute, which is you know um, which is part of the zoo too, they do a lot of great work around coral conservation, and I'm very passionate about the seas and our oceans, the state of our oceans, with climate change and the risk of warming, the, the the increasing temperatures of our oceans. This has been something that I've been paying a lot of attention to. So yeah, totally passionate about that, and happy that we are doing something tangible towards that.
Yes, our
Hmm.
scientists are doing really incredible work in the coral cryopreservation. It's really neat.
Yeah.
Great.
So.
And our last very important zoo question, which you've already sort of answered, what is your favorite animal at the zoo and why?
Okay, well, I did say, so the red panda is definitely one of my favorite animals at the zoo. They're just criminally cute, like, yeah. And they're also very much misunderstood. One of the cool facts that I learned recently uh, was that they were actually the first animal to be labeled as pandas, that they preceded the naming of the giant panda by 50 years. So red
Yes.
pandas were known 50 years prior. And yeah, that was very surprising. And I just think also they're overlooked a lot when it comes to conservation as becoming icons or representatives of the conservation movement as a whole, even though they do need a lot of help as well. So I can kind of relate that as somebody who's doing stuff in the back, and
Yeah,
so yeah.
that's a great choice.
Yeah.
Red panda is totally cute. I
Hmm.
absolutely agree.
Yeah, can't
Well,
go
thank
wrong.
you. So we do have a bunch of questions in the Q&A, and keep those
Sure.
questions coming as you think of them. So we have a question here. What coding languages do you know? Which is your favorite? And additionally, which one would you recommend that our viewers start with learning first?
Sure. So just to give you a preface, so web development is a pretty broad category actually, and there are many different specializations. I'm not going to go into all of them, but the big buckets are front end, which is basically a front end web developer. Basically oversees everything that you actually see on your browser. The colors, the styles, the interactions. So that's front end, and then there's the back end, which back end developers tend to work more closely with the data and the back end functionality. How many pages get rendered, performance. They also look at performance and caching. Um, so I'm so for front end wise, the coding languages I'm really into are definitely HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Um, but it's just basically a word we use for styling. So I definitely encourage aspiring developers to start with those three, especially HTML. So HTML is not a traditional programming language. It is what I call a markup language. Basically allows you to take text and do things with it, transform it. Um, and it's not the only markup language. There's also another one called Markdown. So that could also be worth exploring. Um, and then CSS goes hand in hand with HTML. So you use CSS to style or lay out your HTML elements. And then finally, you have JavaScript, which again, I mentioned controls the dynamic. I highly encourage you to learn JavaScript. JavaScript is a standard programming language. It's what we call Turing complete. That means you can, there's a lot of logic, you can pretty much program any form of logic in it. And it's one of the most popular languages in the world today uh, for obvious reasons, because
Just
so yeah.
because I got to sample your our Wildside wrap up yesterday, both with HTML and the CS, is it CCS?
CSS. Yeah.
So the CSS, you'll be able to change the font size and color and everything again in those web pages, as Mo showed us, and the
Yeah.
HTML, whether it's a paragraph or a heading, all of those things you'll get the chance to play around with.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So another great zoo-related question. What is your favorite thing about working at a zoo?
So I'm not gonna lie, I've worked in many places. So one of the advantages of being a web developer is that you have your, the web needs are not limited to a certain career area or a certain industry. But my favorite thing about working at a zoo is, you're doing meaningful work. You're doing something that is impactful and meaningful. You get to work with great. There are lots of I'm really a project-driven person, which is one of the reasons why I got into web development in the first place. And there are lots of projects at the zoo. So not just web development projects specifically, but application developments. So it's definitely interesting. And then thirdly, you get to work with cute fuzzy images of animals, video of animals. So it's never an eyesore,
Right.
So I definitely don't mind doing that. So
That's great.
yeah.
So I know you've talked about some of the interesting projects you've worked on. This is an additional question of,
Sure.
do you have any other fun problems you've solved or any wild interactions you've had while working here?
Probably the wildest interaction I've had was when I first started. My office was right close to the cheetah enclosure, and we have two cheetah brothers, and I would always leave a little later than most folks. And so I would, walk down that path, and they would always follow me, and so it always made me a little nervous. So that's like the wildest thing. Oh, and then seeing deer around the park. So that's my closest.
Tons of wild deer.
Yeah. But uh, one of the projects that we're still kind of working on was a Nest Watch project, which we were assisting our bird conservation scientists on building a interface for our bird watchers, so they can collect and parse their data. So that was one project I've worked on, and the daily keeper reporting system. So I've also been working on that, basically helping our animal keepers to create reports and also look at a historical overview of our animals. Should also mention that my work is actually not only specifically limited to the zoo, and I actually do work a lot with other developers at the Smithsonian, because the zoo is part of the Smithsonian Institution, which houses a number of different museums. And so, I work with other developers at other units on developing applications and that will benefit the Smithsonian as a whole. So that is also really unique and wonderful opportunity that I get working here at the zoo.
Yeah, and there's so many projects across the Smithsonian Institution.
Exactly. Yeah.
Beyond just the zoo. That's really neat that you have sort of that interdepartmental collaboration, we'll say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Looks like we have one final question here. We already talked a little bit about this, but if you want to just reiterate how you got into coding and web development, and again, any advice for those who are interested in as well.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, so I did not, I don't have a computer science background. So part of it started with my frustration. Okay, so I was working at Georgetown University, and I love Georgetown, but one of the things that I had was I wanted to expand upon our on our website. I wanted to add more content to our website. I wanted to do more dynamic stuff. And I felt that because I was just a web writer and I didn't have any coding experience, that I was very limited. So I started to learn more about how to get this stuff done. And then it just was a rabbit hole, and I just went right in. And first step I did was I would encounter a problem, and then I would of course Google it, and then that would lead me to another resource, or about doing it a better way, for example, or a different way. So then I would study that. So, and then I graduated over to online courses on services like lynda.com or Udemy. There are lots of web development courses there. And then finally, I did take a boot camp class about 5 years ago, which kind of helped too. So,
Very interesting.
yeah.
Right. Well, if there's no other questions, it doesn't look like anything else is coming in. Mo, thank you so much for joining us for our first
Pleasure is mine.
installment of the Wild Side of STEAM. I know I personally learned so much about web
glad.
development and coding, and I'm sure our viewers did as well. So once again, if you are interested in coding and web development as a potential zoo career or STEAM career, we encourage you to try your hand at the Wild Side wrap-up activity that Mo has specifically designed that we got a little bit of a preview of today. And you can really plug and play with that code, make your own animal web page. And that, again, that activity is found on the webinar page of the zoo's website. So thank you again to everyone for joining us, especially thank you to Mo for the wonderful insight into your career. We hope that you will join us for the next installment of the Wild Side of STEAM on Friday, November 6th. On behalf of the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute, we hope you have a wild day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.